collegiate record holder, meet record holder Abdi Nur of Northern Arizona, and Dylan Jacobs. He has had one heck of a great indoor season. The senior from Tennessee at the SEC meet, he just owned it.
And also ran the anchor leg of their winning distance medley relay. 8 men have run under 13:20 this season. This 5K final is going to be spicy. The fastest among them is Dylan Jacobs, but also watch for a big push and contention from the squad from Stanford, led by Charles Hicks, the NCAA cross-country champion. 5 of the men in this field boast either wins or runner-up finishes at previous NCAA championships. Hicks and Jacobs among those 5, of course. Also, you see Kai Robinson from Stanford, the 5K runner-up. Alex Mayer from Oklahoma State, the NCAA 10K runner-up previously. And Nico Young from Northern Arizona, runner-up in cross-country.
25 laps of this 200-meter oval. The bulk of the runners on the inside sector. I count 5 on the outside group. And they'll stay in those groups until they hit the finishing straight for the first time and then break for the pole.
Dylan Jacobs, the fastest in the field this season, having run 13:11:01 for the number 3 time in collegiate history. And no one has run as fast as recently as Dylan Jacobs has. A number of guys are right there in that 3:11 neighborhood. However, a lot of those marks were run back in December. Guys were coming off of outstanding cross-country strength, whereas Dylan Jacobs ran that 13:11:01 in Boston at the end of January, and then has done some fine-tuning as well. Also clocked an impressive 3,000, the number 2 in collegiate history, running just a half second behind Drew Bosley's newly established 3K collegiate record. And you have Bosley right there in the hunt, in the top 3 right now, rocking that incredibly impressive mustache. And there's his teammate Nico Young getting up alongside him as well.
3 Stanford runners in this 5,000-meter final. 2 athletes from Northern Arizona and Flagstaff, where they live and train at similar altitude to here. BYU's Joey Noakes is also in here. Provo, very close to the same altitude as here.
Yeah, one big factor for Northern Arizona, they boast the previous champion in this event with Abdi Nur, and then they're dropping down by about 2,000 meters. Had a conversation with their head coach, Mike Smith, about that opportunity for these guys and the situation with how well versed they are in having run at altitude. He mentioned with both Nico and with Drew, they have just been incredibly focused. And then he said, Drew, just the way that he's approached practice and racing, that is what has allowed him to run so fast over 3,000 meters. He said he's been waiting, Drew Bosley, a long time for this. The familiarity and the conditioning for both the Northern Arizona athletes will be a big factor in this.
Devin Hart, the junior from Stanford, in the lead with Patrick Kiprop of Arkansas in second. Casey Klinger of BYU was in third, but now here comes one of the Northern Arizona athletes. They pick up his hip number.
It's Drew Bosley.
And they are 1-2 now as Dylan Jacobs covers that move. And Bosley picking up the pace as you see the field start to string out behind him. Stanford runners now position themselves back in 4th, 5th, 6th, 5th, 6th, 7th, something in that area. Want to stay in contention, cover that move.
Bosley and Young working really well together up front, with Dylan Jacobs sitting comfortably in third. Coach Smith said of Nico Young, came in with so much attention after that incredible high school career that he had, part of that Newberry Park powerhouse program. He had run really fast coming out of high school, hadn't been in a lot of championship settings, so it took him a while to learn that game. Had to get into the meets, get into those situations to practice learning how to execute. But he has stepped up in the biggest moments to have that success that he had last year and in cross country. Jacobs looks outstanding right now. I had a conversation just a little bit ago with Tennessee distance and cross country coach Sean Carlson. Jacobs came over with Carlson from previously being at Notre Dame together, and he said Dylan's vibing right now. He feels really good coming into this 5K championship. Interestingly, Dwight, Tennessee, we talked about the impact of the altitude and how different people were game planning and approaching it. Tennessee decided to come in a little bit later. They had the crew of their sprinters and jumpers. They were on a charter coming in early. But Tennessee and the distance runners, Sean Carlson, Dylan Jacobs, that squad, decided to come in just yesterday. Dylan Jacobs was supposed to be part of the press conference, but got in too late to be a part of it. They were delayed coming through Dallas. He was afraid to come in too soon to allow all of that altitude impact and that deoxygenation.
What you said.
Yes, exactly. Deoxygenation to set in. So it'll be interesting to see how that strategy and science plays out.
A little more than a mile gone in this race. We're going to step aside for a few moments. We'll be back with more of the 5,000 meters when we return to the Albuquerque Convention Center. More of our coverage of the NCAA Indoor Championships. Back in Albuquerque, 14 laps remaining in this men's 5,000 meters, and not much has changed except the leader. It's now Nico Young of Northern Arizona leading Drew Brosley of Northern Arizona. Dylan Jacobs there in third from Tennessee. Patrick Kiprop in the Crimson of Arizona. Then two Stanford runners, I should say. And the pace is decent enough where they're pretty well strung out here.
Bosley and Young used to running together not only in training, but they went 2-3 in the cross-country championships to help NAU to that team title. So trying to play to the advantage that they have of that great strength that they've capitalized on all indoor season as they are trying to push the pace just a little bit. We have seen how strong of a kick that Jacobs has in those anchor legs of DMRs. Previously, both at Notre Dame and most recently at the University of Tennessee. He also has an incredible closing kick. When he won the 10K last year outdoors, clocked a 55.45 last 400, and that's how we've seen him run a lot of races of late. Very quick closing 200s and 400s. Coach Carlson said the focus has always been on this double at Nationals, preparing Dylan Jacobs to be in contention at both distances. And this is the best he'd ever looked. Okay, starting to see a little bit of traffic. People are starting to get a little bit anxious now, and you're going to see Bosley break through as Young slides in, and seems to be a bit of a frustration there for Dylan Jacobs as Nico Young slid in just ahead of him. They're going to challenge Jacobs to push this pace, knowing that these guys are doubling back. That is a factor. Bosley and Jacobs anticipated to come back in the 3K tomorrow.
Well, I have to say that to my eye, Dylan Jacobs looks the most relaxed. And you got about two guys in front of him that train and live at altitude in Flagstaff, and Jacobs is running as though he does too.
I asked Sean Carlson, what's his best event with what we have seen him and his ability to do from 3,000 up to 10,000? And he said, when you're ready to win a national title, you're usually not too far off, and the events that surround it. So whether, it is the 5K, you're going to run a good 3K and probably a good 10K to surround that. Starting to see a bunch now packing up behind Bosley.
Bosley came out and pushed the pace a little bit, and then really took his foot off the gas, and that's why you see there's a bit of bunching up near the front now. It's a group of about 8 who are near the front, but he definitely slowed the pace down in this last lap.
Also, keep your eyes on hip 5. That's Alex Mayer of Oklahoma State, won both the 5 and the 3 at the conference meet. The advice from his head coach, jog until a K to go, and then aim to run about a 2:30 last K. That's what Dave Smith's direction was to Alex Mayer, and he is right there kind of hanging in the middle of the pack.
I'm not a geography major, but the last time I checked, Stillwater was not at altitude.
No,
that might be a nice direction.
They do boast an incredibly tough cross-country course, as John Anderson can attest. So when you train on that grueling cross-country course, you got to have something to show for it, because I know that has been a brutal endeavor for a lot of people in terms of traversing that terrain at the cross-country championships in previous years.
We're going to start dealing with lapped runners here pretty soon. We're coming up on 7 laps to go, less than a mile to go. Bosley leading Jacobs and Young. Kiprop is there in 5th position in the All Crimson of Arkansas.
Talking about altitude, though, you were mentioning it. Casey Klinger from BYU, a 2-time cross-country All-American, right there up in 4th. Essentially a lateral move from Provo to Albuquerque, so one of those that has the benefit, much like the Northern Arizona athletes.
And Bosley now pushes again, drops the hammer. Jacobs doesn't exactly cover the move, but he has a similar turnover.
Bosley ran 13:13:26 back in December, number 6 in collegiate history, playing off of that incredible cross-country strength that he has built. That's in addition to then running that 3,000-meter collegiate record in late January on that very fast track in Boston.
And they're now lapping one of the Stanford runners, Devin Hart, who was the leader early on in this race. And then Bosley downshifts, and the pack catches up and bunches up a little bit.
So you're seeing he's throwing in those bursts of speed, kind of pushing on the pedal and then letting up on the gas, forcing a bit of a response from the rest of the field, seeing who is willing to go. And Kai Robinson appears primed to go from Stanford. He was recently 23rd at the World Cross Country Championships in Australia. Broke up impressive performances in the 5K and the 3K with that World Cross Country appearance. And head coach JJ Clark really credits distance coach Ricardo Santos for Kai Robinson running with such great confidence. He runs very controlled, and that experience that he built over the course of the last few months has really bolstered his confidence, in addition to being able to run with teammate Charles Hicks.
3 laps remaining, and there are 6 in contention as Jacobs looks like he's going to go for it, and Bosley rebuffs him. It's Bosley, Jacobs, Klinger, Young, and Robinson, with Kiprop now in 6th for Arkansas, and that number 4 on his hip, that is Parker Wolf, the sophomore from North Carolina.
As long as Dylan Jacobs keeps them in striking distance, it is tough to run with him with 400 meters to go. He can pretty much hang with about anybody, but I like how gutsy Drew Bosley has been running this indoor season, and he is going to gun for Dylan Jacobs.
Quarter mile to go. Jacobs takes the lead over Bosley and Klinger and Young. That's a group of 4 that has broken away. We see Jacobs wind it up from further out than this. I don't know if those surges are going to take their toll on Bosley. Again, they train and live at this altitude, so that is not going to be an issue.
Young is fighting right up there in the thick of it as well. The top 4 have separated themselves. 200-meter sprint to the finish.
And Jacobs just shifted gears. Bosley trying to cover the move, but look at how smoothly Jacobs pulls away. Klinger's got his eyes on Bosley, but no one's going to catch Dylan Jacobs. Dylan Jacobs is going to win the 5,000 meters here at the NCAA championships, with Casey Klinger of BYU getting 2nd, and Drew Bosley of Northern Arizona finishing 3rd. 13:37:59 in these conditions, pretty impressive. Patrick Kiprop looks like he finished below 5th for the Razorbacks.
You can just tell how much fun Dylan Jacobs is having this season at the University of Tennessee. Absolutely throws down the hammer when necessary to flex that impressive closing kick that he has. And what a race from Casey Klinger as well to close and reel in Drew Bosley for that runner-up finish. Jacobs eases up to celebrate at the line, cruises through to that 5,000 title, and he will be back for more in the 3K. Will be very interesting to see the collegiate record holder, Andrew Bosley, and what he does too, as we see a bit of a rematch coming up. Northern Arizona boasts number 3 and number 4 finishers in that field with Bosley and Young.
From the team standpoint, Patrick Kiprop getting 3 points for Arkansas, finishing 6th, but it was Dylan Jacobs who looked the best in the entire race over Casey Klinger and then the 2 Northern Arizona athletes. And John Anderson is with the winner.
The winner of the fastest collegian ever at altitude. I don't know, if you get a pin for that or what happens, but there's a lot going on over the course of 5,000 meters. So give me the short version to describe the race.
Great job. Yeah, I mean, I kind of figured Bosley and Young might take it just because of that whole altitude thing, but I mean, we were ready, we prepared for that, and we came in knowing it was going to be tough. I mean, it's a national championship, a bunch of the best runners in the country, even the world, so we just prepared in training, and it was all about just trusting yourself and trusting your ability over the final K.
Give me where the hardest part of that race was for you.
I tried to make a pass around like 6 to go, and Bosley didn't let me in, and I was like, shoot, because you only get a certain amount of moves, so I was like, dang, better make the next one count, but honestly, props to all of them. Those front running, it's incredible. They're great runners, so we'll be seeing them tomorrow also in the 3K, and I'm sure they're going to do great in that as well.
All right, well, then if you win, we'll chat again tomorrow. Good?
Sounds great.
Dylan Jacobs. Dwight?
Go Vols.